Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam and welcome back to the Horror Movie Iceberg podcast where myself and Russell Howell watch disturbing horror movies until we tap out. Russell, how are you?
Good. Looking forward to this one. This was one that my stepdaughter Tate, shout out, loves this film. I saw it a long time ago. I remember not thinking like it was the greatest thing on earth, but so it was nice to actually watch it again. I'm like probably like 10 years removed from this film, I would say. But yeah, looking forward to talking about this film. So yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about As Above, So Below.
It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault!
This was directed by John Eric Dowdle, who we had covered earlier in this podcast with Quarantine, and we'll be covering again later down as we go deeper into the Iceberg. And it was released in 2013. It starred Perdita Weeks, Ben Feldman, and Edwin Hodge, among others. And it tells the story of a scholar named Scarlett Marlowe who is on the search for the Philosopher's Stone. Like, yes, the one from Harry Potter, except it's Sorcerer's Philosophers. It's that one. And so in order to do that, they find the Rose Key, which leads them to the catacombs of Paris. And, well, yeah, if you're claustrophobic, you're not going to like this, because, man, this movie... I'm not claustrophobic, I can safely say that, but
Yeah.
the movie's biggest strength is that it makes you feel, like, locked in. Like, I think this and Buried, that Ryan Reynolds movie we got in, like, 08, 09, where he's stuck in that casket, I think those two movies are, like, the only ones that made me go, I need to, like, go outside. Like, I really need to go outside.
Yeah, very both tight environments. I'll even say The Descent at times too. I would throw that in there as like a kind of a confined area too. But yeah, no, that's the definitely the hats off moment. I would say is the way that this movie's shot. I think especially in this tight confine environment, you know what I mean. I think it's shot pretty well. I can only imagine how many times they had to cut different shots to see that you couldn't see the camera guy in it. You know what I mean? I thought it was done pretty well.
Yeah, and this is a movie that opens feeling very much like an adventure film almost. It's Rose trying to find the Rose Key, or Scarlett trying to find the Rose Key, excuse me, and she's in this cave in Iran, and she's trying to find the key, and I really like the opening of this and how it sets the tone for you're going to be in a lot of tight spaces, but it shows she's good at her job and she is very capable of trying to find this stone. I like the spirit of that.
Yeah, I mean, and thank God she knows what she knows, because if not, I would never even try to imagine tackling this, because of the fact that, with like Robert Langdon, Eat Your Heart Out type stuff, you know what I mean, with like symbols and different languages, and just the whole entire world down underneath the ground of the catacombs and stuff like that. It's just completely crazy. Definitely, like we said, it's just that tight environment the whole entire film. And you kind of are, and I think you are on the edge of your seat, because you are kind of curious, like, are they going to find what they're looking for? Like, what could like possibly take this movie an hour and a half? Like, what are you going to like stumble across throughout this whole entire adventure? And I think it does a good enough job doing that, though. It keeps you invested enough.
Yeah. Like I said, biggest asset is the claustrophobia, which leads into my point on the atmosphere, because this was literally shot in the famous catacombs of Paris. There's only a mile worth of those catacombs open to the public, and you can tour this place.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, like, this is one of the more unique locations for a found footage movie if I've ever seen one, because like it's just unsettling. It's just skulls and bones as far as the eye can see, and you could just imagine how long these skulls and bones have been down there. You would imagine maybe like the 1500s, 1600s, maybe even more back than that. It's like harrowing doesn't even really describe it.
And you figure, like you said, there's only a mile open to the public. You figure how much of that they had to, utilize for this film, and it feels like it's a lot more longer than a mile. Like this whole entire journey, you feel like they're going really, really, really far, in different layers too. Like they're going down and they're going down and then they're going down. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how far they're going in this film. You have no sense of direction, almost like a Blair Witch type of like, you up is down, left is right, your right is left. You don't know where you're going, and I think it's one of those things, especially in this environment. It's so tight of an environment that it's claustrophobic. It definitely utilizes its environment really well, keeping you like obviously, the watcher just like really like you said, you just want to go outside and stretch out for a little bit. You want to be like, man, and like my like my name says on the screen there, not going down there. I would not go down there. And it's not like I'm claustrophobic. I just think that to me, there's so many other things that could go wrong. Like we obviously encounter things that if you don't, they used to do things where they did like puzzles and you had to solve puzzles. And then they had to realize like, oh, well, that was before Earth was considered a planet or the sun was considered a planet too. You know what I mean? And you have to take the 7th block off. And like, and if you don't, the roof caves in and you die. Like, that's scary. Like you would have to know all these things. You would have to know the history of that stuff. You would have to know when exactly was this built. Okay, so this is when it was built. Okay, so what was considered a planet at that time? You know what I mean? You have you have to be a really thorough historian to do this kind of stuff. And it's like one small mess up, man, you're done. And it's
one of those, like, it kind of reminds me of October Sky when I covered that for the 1999 project. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, period. But it's a movie about where Homer Hickam, who would go on to be a part of the space program, lives in this town called Colwood, West Virginia. And it's a mining town, and you don't see the mine too often.
Yeah.
But when you're down there, you feel like it feels like death is around every corner in that place. No wonder he wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, and then you see how many incidences. I think the Sago mine incident, I think, was around the West Virginia area too. You see those types of like incidences happening quite frequently. I mean, not frequently like every day, but like when you hear about it, obviously. And it's just like I can only imagine how like harrowing that would be just to go through that type of experience, man. To be, some of those incidences where they were alive for days and days and days. Trapped in those tight confines. I can only imagine that stuff, man. That's got to be horrifying.
Yeah. And going into a little bit of the leading up to this and the production side of things, the research I was looking up and stuff, and it is truly fascinating. The Dowdles really had to like break their backs in order to like get a lot of this stuff done. Like they shot, like I said, literally in the catacombs of Paris itself. They had to get permission from the French government in order to do it. And they didn't get permission officially cleared until the night before they were going to start. So talk about a tight deadline there.
Yeah, seriously.
And then what's crazy to think about, and without giving too much away plot-wise, there's a lot of scenes in the movie where you see visions of things that are relevant to the characters in their past. Specifically a car that's on fire. That was practical. They actually set a car on fire, and they had to doctor it and, gussy it up to make it like look like it's in the catacombs, but it's not.
Yeah.
But the fact that this movie had a budget of between $5 and $10 million, and they were able to get away with that, I thought that was pretty well done.
Oh, it was a really good shot. That you're talking about near the end of the film. Well, obviously, for our listeners, it's near the tail end of the film. It's really good practical shot. You really think the car's down there, which is really says a lot for the placement, just the way they shoot it. Definitely use their money wisely, I would think. And it's one of those ones where it's a found footage film that actually keeps you on the edge of your seat. Obviously, visiting the quarantine films, this is a nice fresh breath of air. Not much breath of air because we're in the confines of the catacombs, but still, definitely, I like it enough to where it was, it was shot well, budget wise, like, didn't blow the tops off of, everybody who probably threw their money into it. I mean, I think it was done well. What did it make opening weekend or total grossing at the theater?
Total was 41.8 million. So nice, healthy
So,
profit after marketing and all of that.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think these are the types of films, you don't see these types of films, obviously, a lot because of the fact that they don't have that permission to shoot down in the catacomb. So it was a different idea in that aspect. So, kudos for like a more of an original idea.
Yeah. And there was also a lot of headaches for like shooting down in these catacombs. They had to test beforehand to make sure they weren't breathing in something bad in the air, and thankfully there wasn't. But there was just a lot of precautions that they had to do before they had to do this. Like there was a proposed scene the Dowdle brothers wanted to shoot in a corner of the catacombs where the Nazis used to get away in Paris. There was even supposedly, and this is from the Dowdles themselves in an interview, there's a sign that said Adolf Hitler Strasse, which is Adolf Hitler Street. There was even a sign, but the sign was destroyed. So they had to do away with that. But the point I'm trying to get at with this is that the Dowdles put in the work in order to make this as effective as possible. So I got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, how many other people would just go the lazy route and just kind of half-ass it, like, I mean, oh, we're going to do this, but like they actually put the, the grunt work into it. So, that's saying a lot, and that's saying that they're really passionate about that project. You know what I mean? And if they're passionate about it, that comes out on the screen, which I think it does, to where it's something different. I mean, there are a couple of jump scares. I mean, it's not like it's a horrifying, oh my Lord, like near the back end of the movie, I think there's a couple jump scares, but for the most part, I think it's more of the environment. I think that's the scary, is, the tight confines of the catacombs, I think is the scary part, the majority of the film.
Yeah, like I said, it starts out as a bit of an action, or not an action, but more of like an adventure movie with Scarlet going after the Rose Key and then trying to find the stone and all of that. And as soon as they enter the catacombs, that's when things start going south. It's not like there's somebody, it's not like what you mentioned with the Descent, where it's like there's something in this cave that these cave divers have to escape. It's like they're down there, they don't know what is down there with them. Head games start getting played with them, not necessarily from anything that they might be doing, but just because they're stuck in an environment with like little to no air and only like their wits about them, which is not enough to get out at least unscathed.
Yeah, and you do wonder how much of that stuff like that they see down there is real and how much of it is in their head because of the fact that it's almost like a mirage type thing. You know what I mean? They're just so air deprived and like their mind's playing tricks on them at that point too. So you kind of wonder how much of that stuff's in their head and how much of it's actually real.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, I was like, okay, clearly, like, these are mind games, but the actors do a pretty good job of selling it to the point where, like, okay, maybe it's not, and so there's a nice little balance there, I think, anyway.
Yeah, no, and kind of like what you said, it's more of like a swashbuckling type of thing. You think it's almost like an Indiana Jones-esque, romancing the stone-esque type of beginning, and that quickly goes out the window when they go to the catacombs. And like I said, I keep going back to the Descent because I kind of just feel like those tight confines, and obviously it's a whole different premise for each of those films, but it just kind of reminds me a lot of it, I think. Just because of the teams, and I think of the tight spaces,
There's a lot of comparisons that you can make between those two movies. I personally like this a little bit more than The Descent, but that's just my taste personally. I think this is an overall a very affecting film. It's not perfect. I think some of the characters are pretty disposable, like minus Scarlet and David, who we meet like later on. I feel like the rest I could just do without. I feel like they're just there to be like sacrifices, I guess.
Yeah, really. I mean, because you can't have like just three main characters go at it. Like obviously, like Blair Witch, why not, right? But yeah, it's almost like they're just there for padding, for fluff, for kills, literally. But um, I think it's utilized enough, and I think it's entertaining enough.
Yeah, and I haven't touched on the plot too terribly much because I don't want to give too much away. It's not like a spoiler heavy film, but at a certain point you'd be like, okay, I think I know where this is going. And I don't want to give too much away. I feel like if you go in fresh, that's like the best way you should try and watch this, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would even just stay away from if you haven't seen it. Don't even watch the trailer. Just kind of watch it, like just watch it cold. I think those are the best way to enter some of these types of movies. You know what I mean? You don't know, you're seeing everything firsthand, what's going on as it's happening, as opposed to sometimes trailers. And I don't really remember the trailer for this one, but sometimes trailers can give away a lot more than what they intend to sometimes, which can be a downfall to some of the movies. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, they show a lot of things in different trailers that kind of spoil things. But I, like I said, I would go in with fresh eyes on this one and try to stay away from it if you haven't seen it. I mean, it's 12 years old. Chances are you probably have seen it, but if not, it's definitely one worth seeking out.
Yeah, on my scale, I'm going to give this a great rating. The characters are very dry, minus Scarlett and David, but the rest of the movie is actually, I would dare say, this movie's rather underrated in terms of found footage, because in terms of effectiveness of what they're trying to go for, I feel like they mostly succeed. Like I said, if you're claustrophobic, stay far away from this because
Yeah.
it will make you feel like you are stuck with these people because you pretty much are.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where you do feel uh, that tight weight on your chest while you're breathing while you're watching this film. But I think that's obviously what it's intended to do. And I think, like I said, I think everything's utilized really well in the film. I mean, the couple of the main actors or a couple of the main characters in the film are the ones that you kind of side more with. The other ones are kind of just throwaway. But at the end of the day, I think it's a solid enough film. I would say The Descent's better in my opinion. I remember loving The Descent when I first saw it. But I mean, this movie's definitely, I mean, it's good enough. It's definitely a really solid found footage. I mean, it's obviously better than the two quarantine films and the back end of those rec films. So it's pretty high up there, I would assume. Then
I agree. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of As Above, So Below? Let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And Russell, it's a privilege to do this with you every week. Tell the people where they can find you.
appreciate it. Yeah, Notorious by Chance on Facebook is the group. We will be shooting sometime in the near future here with the Schindler's List for our 200th episode. Check out the Left Side Strong Side on YouTube, though, on our Notorious by Chance YouTube feed. They put a ton of content out there. Like I said, with the NFL season kicking off in full throttle, they're always posting stuff on there. So if you're a football fan, it's something you don't want to miss out on. So definitely check us out there as well.
Yep, all those links will be down below. Go give them a subscribe over there. As far as this channel goes, and as far as Fridays go, throughout the month of October, because it is spooky season, the horror movie Iceberg has taken over Fridays and will be continuing on throughout the month. We wrapped up Rec and Quarantine last week. We also talked about The Visit. This week, we just talked about As Above, So Below. Next week, and I assume, Russell, you have not seen this movie, and if you have, then I'm sorry, but we're going to be covering a movie that we have no knowledge of whatsoever called The Fourth Kind. Have you seen it?
I saw it in the theater, yeah.
Okay, well, you've seen it, I have not. So you know way more about it than I do, but it's about aliens. That's all I know.
Yeah. I'm far removed from it though, just because of the fact that it came out like I think 2009. I want to say around
2009,
09.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's been a minute since I've seen it fully through, so looking forward to that. I believe that Mila Jovovich is in this, correct?
Mila Jovovich and Will
Mila
Patton.
Jovovich.
Yes.
Yep, yeah. So I do remember a little bit about it, but it'll be nice to revisit this film for sure. I remember liking it enough, so looking forward to talking about that film next week.
Yep. Well, thank you all so much for watching or listening. For Russell, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all next week. You all have a good one.